What could the Diablo games, the scouting movement, and universal healthcare possibly have to do with one another? More than you would think. I'm Dr. Darren Reid, and this is History Through Games Diablo Edition. If you've ever played the extremely popular Diablo franchise and actually paid attention to the lore, you may know that the games revolve around an ancient war between angels and demons known as the Great Conflict. But in a Romeo and Juliet style romance, one angel and one demon break off, fall in love, and produce hybrid offspring known as the Nephilim. Those Nephilim then produce their own offspring, who become weaker and weaker with every generation until they eventually become the humans that we know today. A major element of the Diablo games is therefore for humans to regain the lost power of their ancestors and put a stop to the war that has been going on between angels and demons for millennia. This notion at the heart of the Diablo franchise, that humanity degrades over time and needs to regain its lost splendor, believe it or not, has played a central role in the past 120 years of British history. And to understand why, we need to go back to the South African War of 1899 to 1902, when the mighty British Empire went to war against the tiny Afrikaner republics of South Africa. The South African War caused widespread panic and dismay in Britain for a variety of reasons. Firstly, its military performance was dismally embarrassing. The mighty British Empire landed over 500,000 troops in South Africa against a measly 25,000 Afrikaner soldiers, who were believed by British to be incompetent farmers. But those farmers ended up fighting off the British Empire in a very successful guerrilla campaign for over 3 years. It was the bloodiest, longest, and most expensive war Britain had participated in since the Napoleonic Wars of 1815, and it caused widespread panic that the British people were becoming weaker over time and degrading from the powerful British Empire that they used to be. Secondly, the British Army was rumored to be having difficulties finding enough sufficiently healthy soldiers to send down to South Africa. Alarming statistics circulated around Britain that more than 50% of those who applied to military service were rejected on account of their lack of fitness or their lack of health. The accuracy of those statistics has been disputed, but people at the time took it as evidence that British bodies and British people were degrading and becoming weaker with every generation. And this is where the scouting movement and universal healthcare come into the story. In response to public panic about the degradation of the British people, the British government launched an investigation into the issue and determined that poverty was the primary cause of Britain's ailing bodies. It called for a state-sponsored project to feed needy school children and to provide regular medical examinations to working-class people, which eventually turned into the National Insurance Act of 1911, which eventually turned into the National Health Service that exists today to provide universal healthcare to all of British people. Around the same time, a soldier who had fought in the South Africa War named Robert Baden-Powell was looking for ways to reverse the deterioration of Britain's youth, which he believed had led to Britain's poor military performance in the war. He wanted to start training Britain's young boys to turn them into effective soldiers for the Empire's future wars. Baden-Powell feared that boys were being urbanized and weakened and effeminized by going to work in city factories rather than working in the countryside or joining the army. So he wanted to inculcate militaristic values in boys at an early age to turn them from effeminate urban boys into tough, self-sufficient men. Consequently, in 1907 he formed the Scouting movement, which still exists with us today all around the world, where children as young as 5-year-old Beaver Scouts to teenagers up to 17-year-old Venturer Scouts can gain the skills to become effective soldiers. Although today we think of it more in terms of being active, having fun, and learning how to camp. So there you have it. As odd as it sounds, Diablo's lore around the degradation of Nephilim into humans and humanity's quest to regain the lost power of its ancestors is connected to the history of the scouting movement, to the history of universal healthcare, and to the history of the South African War. Let me know your thoughts on this video in the comments below. Did you know that the lore about Diablo was about the degradation of angels into humans? Did you know about the South African War? Did you know that Boy Scouts, or scouting movement in general, was designed to create soldiers and to reduce the feminizing effect of urbanization and factory work? Did you know that universal healthcare was born from panic over the falling standards of the British race? What do you think about this? And are there any other games you'd like me to play? Are there any historical themes you're interested in? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll integrate that into my future videos. And if you like this video, make sure to check out some of my other videos on games like Wolfenstein, Doom, Borderlands, Metal Gear Solid, Zelda. I got a whole host of videos now, and more will be coming every week. But that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Farewell!